Good morning, dear colleagues. Let me introduce you myself. My name is Әсілбекова Фариза. I am a design teacher at Nazarbayev Intellectual School of Astana. And with your permission, I would like to start our lesson. The theme of today's lesson, loops and the loop for creating solutions to the problem. Now we are in the middle of our unit programming solution, and the aim to this lesson is to get acquainted with types of loop for different purposes. Objectives of our lesson. Based on your previous knowledge of programming, today we will try to learn different types of loop. It's for, while, do, while. Remember the main elements of writing program in C++. The third objective is explore particular features of loop for, and the last objective is to use loop for specific purposes. Actualization. Let's remember the previous knowledge. The first question is, which of the following syntax of writing library is correct? Variant A, slash library and close the slash. And look at the other variants and try to answer correctly. Let's see the correct answer. The answer is library, where the symbols of more and less. The next question is, which library is needed to start writing program? Variant A, IO manip, it means input-output manip. B, input-output SFWD. C variant is input-output stream, and the last variant is none of them. Correct answer is IO stream. If you remember, we always start the writing program with library IO stream. The next question, why do we need to write using namespace std? If you remember, after the library we always write the line using namespace std. The first variant is it's a name of library. Second variant, to address two objects cout and cin. C variant is to count functions, and the last variant, none of them is correct. The right answer is to address two objects cout and cin. If we not write this line using namespace std, then our program will not work. We will not see in any object and see out any object. Loop and types of loop. For what we use the loops? There may be a situation when you need to execute a block of code several number of times. In general, statements are executed sequentially. The first statement in a function is executed first, followed by the second, third, and so on. Programming languages provide various control structures that allow for more complicated execution paths. A loop statement allows us to execute a statement or group of statements multiple times, and following is the general form of a loop statement in most of the programming languages. And as you can see in this picture shows you how to loop works. First, condition. If your condition is true, then it goes conditional code, it will work, and when the condition is false, the program will break and show you a result. And what is loop? In computer programming, a loop is a sequence of instructions that is continually repeated until a certain condition is reached. Loop control statement. Loop control statements change execution from its normal sequence. When execution leaves a scope, all automatic objects that were created in that scope are destroyed. C++ supports the following control statements. The first is break statement. Terminates the loop or switch statement and transfers execution to the statement immediately following the loop or switch. The second statement is continue statement. Causes the loop to skip the remainder of its body and immediately retest its condition prior to reiterating. The third statement is go to statement. Go to statement transfers control to the labeled statement, though it's not advised to use go to statement in your program. Let's do the activity. To do the next activity, you should divide into 3 groups. On your table, you have the text. You are needed to find the key elements, words about loop from the given text. For this activity, you have 10 minutes. The first text about for loop. A for loop is a repetition control structure that allows you to efficiently write a loop that needs to execute a specific number of times. Here's the flow of control in a for loop. The variable initialization step is executed first and only once. This step allows you to declare and initialize any loop control variables. You are not required to put a statement here as long as a semicolon appears. Next, the condition is evaluated. If it's true, the body of the loop is executed. If it's false, the body of the loop does not execute and flow of control jumps to the next statement just after the for loop. After the body of the for loop executes, the flow of control jumps back up to the increment statement. This statement allows you to update any loop control variables. This statement can be left blank as long as a semicolon appears after the condition. The condition is now evaluated again. If it's true, the loop executes and the process repeats itself. Body of loop, then increment step, then again condition. After the condition becomes false, the for loop terminates. This is the text for the first group. You should read all this text and try to understand and try to find the key words of this text. Text for the second group is about while loop. The while loop simply repeats statement while expression is true. If after any execution of statement, expression is no longer true, the loop ends and the program continues right after the loop. A thing to consider with while loops is that the loop should end at some point, and thus the statement shall have the values checked in the condition in some way, so as to force it to become false at some point. Otherwise, the loop will continue looping forever. In this case, the loop includes -n that decreases the value of the variable that is being evaluated in the condition n by 1. This will eventually make the condition false after a certain number of loop iterations. To be more specific, after 10 iterations, n becomes 0, making the condition no longer true and ending the while loop. Note that the complexity of this loop is trivial for a computer, and so the whole countdown is performed instantly, without any particle delay between elements of the count. The second group needs to find the key words in this text. The third group has the text C, which about the do-while condition loops. Unlike for and while loops, which test the loop condition at the top of the loop, the do-while loop checks its condition at the bottom of the loop. A do-while loop is similar to a while loop, except that the do-while loop is guaranteed to execute at least one time. Notice that the conditional expression appears at the end of the loop, so the statement or statements in the loop execute once before the condition is tested. And you have 10 minutes to find the key words in these texts. Once you're done, please one member of each group come to the board and fill this table. First group, which text was about for loop, fills the first column. The member of second group, which text was about while loop, fills the second column. And the third group, do while, fills the third column. This table is useful for us to show the differences and the similarities of types of loop: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. If you're done, discuss in a group differences and similarities of loops. If you're done, let's conclude this work. Main differences of loops: that each of them has specific syntax. And similarity is that all of them does condition until the statement true. If it's not true, it breaks. Next, here in this table you can see the description of types of loop. Now we know the while loop, for loop, the while loop. And the first type of loop is nested loop. While loop repeats a statement or group of statements while a given condition is true. It tests the condition before executing the loop body. For loop executes a sequence of statements multiple times and abbreviates the code that manages the loop variable. And the third one, do while loop, like a while statement, except that it tests the condition at the end of the loop body. And nested loops, you can use one or more loop inside any another while, for, or do while loop. It means that in one loop you can use the other loops. In other types of loop, for example, while loop, for loop, do while loop, you cannot use the other loop inside the loop. Please write down this description in your copybook. Now pay attention on the highlighted words in your texts. If you see, there are variable initialization, condition, statement, expression, and increment. Try to give descriptions as you understand the text, descriptions for these keywords. Discuss in a group. Once you've done, let's see the descriptions of these keywords. Variable initialization, often used to initialize loop indices. It can contain expressions or declarations. The second one, condition and expression. An expression that evaluates to an integral type or a class type that has an unambiguous conversion to an integral type, normally used to test for loop termination criteria. Increment, normally used to increment loop indices. Please write these descriptions right down in your copybooks. If you're done, let's see the syntax of a for loop in C++. As you can see in this slide, for the first element is initialization. You can see the description in your copybooks. The second one is condition, and the last one increment. And in the body of for loop conditional code, and this for loop will work until the conditional code is true. This picture shows you how for loop works. First, the initial variable, then condition. If condition is true, the conditional code will work and will increment. If condition is false, it will break. And if condition is true, code will work and increment until your condition will not be true. When executed before any other elements of the for statement, initial expression is executed only once. Control then passes to condition expression. Before execution of each iteration of statement, including the first iteration, statement is executed only if condition expression evaluates to true. It means non-zero. At the end of each iteration of statement, after loop expression is executed, condition expression is evaluated. The initial step is executed first and only once. This step allows you to declare and initialize any loop control variables. You are not required to put a statement here as long as a semicolon appears. Next, the condition is evaluated. After the body of the loop for loop executes, the flow of control jumps back up to the increment statement. This statement allows you to update any loop control variables. Next, the syntax of a while loop in C++. You write while, and while consists only in condition, and the body of while consists conditional code. Here, the picture shows you how while loop works. First condition, if condition is false, it breaks. If condition is true, the conditional code will work until your condition will not be true. If you feel that it's important, you can write down on your copybooks. The next one is do while loop, and the syntax is do, and do consists of conditional code in the body and while condition. In the picture you can see how it works. Code block, then condition. If condition is false, it breaks. If condition is true, the code will return to the code block. Until condition in while will not be true, it means false. Let's do an example for for loop. It's a simple example. The task is count even numbers using a for loop. As you know, the first line is include, and we should show the needed library. Then using namespace std, and you know that why using namespace std is important. Then we should write the function main, and in the body of function main you should write for, and first is variable initialization. It's int count equals 0. Then condition, if count less or equal to 26, and then increment count for 2 in each step. And in the body of for loop you should write cout count and the symbol. After that, cout handle and return 0, and we should close the function main. As you know, to run a compiler, you can press F5. To write this code, you should open your Microsoft Visual Studio, create a CPP file, and then write this code. If your code is correct, the output will be like that: 0, 2, 4, and so on, all the even numbers until the 26. If your code is working, let's try to write code in do while loop. Foresee the difference between for loop and do while loop in a process. To write this code, the task is show the numbers between 10 and 20. Let's try create the new CPP file and write this code. Include IOStream, then the next line is using namespace std. Then we should start a function main, and before the do while loop you should write a integer a equals 10. Then we start the do while loop. Write the do, open the brace, and then see out value of a. Then we should output the a, which in first step is equals to 10, and then end the line. And the statement is a equals to a plus 1, and while condition is a less than 20. Return 0 and close the brace. And press F5 to run a compiler. If your code is correct, the output will be 11, 12, 13, and so on until the 20. If you're done, let's go further. The individual task. First task is the simple task. You should count backwards, showing even numbers. You have 5 minutes to do this task. If you have questions, you can ask me or see the examples. The answer for this task is include IOStream, then using namespace std, then we create the new function main. Then for our initial variable is int count equals 26. Count -1 because we should show the backwards. Count more than -1, it's a condition of this loop, and increment to -2. And statement is cout count and cout end line, return and close the brace, and press the F5 to run a compiler. If your code is correct, the output will be like that: 26, 24, 22, and until the 0. If you have mistakes in your code, you can see the answer and correct them. It's the output of first task. If you have done, let's do the task 2. It's more challenging than task first. The task is add all numbers up to the amount you enter. It means when a compiler opens, you should enter your number, and the code should add all these numbers. And you have 5 minutes to do this task. If you have done, you can see the answer for this task. It's include IOStream using namespace std. As you know, you should create the main function, and then in the body of main function, integer number equals 0, and variable for user to enter a number, int sum equals 0. And to hold the running sum during all loop iterations, cout enter a number. These words enter a number will show in the compiler windows. And see in your number. Loop keeps adding until it reaches the number entered. For loop looks like that. For the initial variable is index equals 0 until the index less or equal to number. It's a condition of for loop. Then increment it to +1. Index plus plus means index equals index plus 1. You can write in like this, index plus plus. In the body of for loop, you should write the formula sum plus equals index, or you can write sum equals sum plus index. Each iteration adds to the variable sum. Close the brace of for loop, then cout statement is put after the loop. Cout, you should write in new line the sum of all numbers from 0 to the number you entered, then equals the sum which is counted in for loop, and then new line, return 0 and close the brace. If your code is correct, after the running the compiler, your output will be like this. If you enter the number 6, the sum of all numbers from 0 to 6 equals 21. It means 0 plus 1 plus 2 and so on until the 6. If you have mistakes in your code, you can see the answer and correct them. In this code, the comments are important, and when you write the code, try to write the comments to clarify your code. It will be easy to you and to your classmates or friends. It's the output of the second task. And try to do this task using the do while loop. You can see the example to do this task. If you have done, let's conclude our lesson. What is the loop and types of loop? Who can answer? The second question is their similarity and differences. You can see the table which you fill it in your groups. Read this table and see the similarity or differences. And next, keywords and their description. You can find answer for this question in your copybook if you write this. The next, syntax of writing loops. Syntax of for loop, while loop, and do while loop. And the last one is how to use for loop to solve the problem You can see your codes, the 2 tasks that you did. And you can answer for the question how to use the do while loop, because you've done it. On your table you have the piece of paper, and there are reflection, 3 questions. The first question is two things which are clear for me. If you understand, for example, what is for loop or while loop, do while loop, or you know what is loop or syntax of loop, you can write here as an answer for this, for first question. The second question, 2 things which I need to learn more or not clear for you. You can write as an answer for the second question. And the last is your recommendation for the lesson. You like this question or you have some recommendations or comments for this lesson, please write here. If you've done, let's see the homework. Homework is show all odd numbers from 0 to 100 using a for loop and find the sum of all odd numbers. It's similar to the second task which you did. And the next, try to solve the same problem with do while loop and with while loop. Here the references, you can use it while you do the homework. And I will send you this presentation if you need. Thank you for your attention, for lesson. Goodbye.